last two lessons were shapes that you can use over a minor chord and a major chord. And in this lesson, I'm going to give you 3 musical examples that you can actually use to test this out with. And this first one is just 2 minor chords. So we have A minor to C sharp minor. 2 quite random chords, but 2 minor chords, so we can use the same patterns. Okay, this was one of the patterns from last week. It's a root, 5, octave, 9, flat 10. You don't need to know that, but it is useful to know that. These are chord tones and they work over chords. And as bass players, we're not going to play those notes together, but we can play them separately, and you've got loads of options here. There's the A. If I go to C sharp, A is on the 5th fret E string. So that's where we're going to have our root note for this example. Then if you fly up to the 9th fret, you can do the same thing. Now what you play over this is completely up to you. I sometimes overplay when I practice, and if I were to do a bass line for a session or a band, I would be looking for a more tasteful part. Usually that means taking out. Let's do that actually. What will I play? Something like that, where I'm playing fewer notes. That was one of the patterns. So we have a root, flat 7, and a flat 3rd. I would learn them as patterns, and I would learn them as sounds, and I would learn them as intervals. You know, root, flat 7, flat 3rd. Whichever way you learn them, they work over these particular chords. There's the A minor, C sharp minor. Same pattern works. But when I was trying to make up the bass line, I was doing a bit less. Gap. I think this is a good point, you know. Just because you can play doesn't mean you should. I love players like Tony Levin and Pino Palladino, where the groove and the tone is just there all the time, and then something grabs your ear every now and again, and it's just something like that. But this is up to you. Use this how you like. Let's do only a couple more patterns over this, and I'll move on to the next example. Okay, that one. Root, 5, flat 7, which was down there before. No, it's up here. And octave, very common bass pattern. Let's do it here. You can place the first finger on the 4th fret, that's where C sharp is. You really, really need to know the notes well, by the way, and you need to be able to hit the A or the C sharp wherever and play the correct notes off of that. It's the same pattern though. It just so happens that it's closer to the A here, so I might prefer to play it there. So 4th fret A string. You can use any of the patterns that fit over it. I must say that these don't fit over every single minor chord. Let's just say you're in the key of E minor and you're playing A minor, B minor, E minor. Now that pattern, the root 5 flat 7 octave, that will work over each of those notes. Over A minor, B minor, E minor. But that pattern that I love, so you've got root, 5, 9, flat 10, that will not work over all of them. It will work over the A and over the E, but it won't work over the B. Because in E minor, this is a little bit too much for this lesson, but I will explain it. That's the key we're in. And if you start on the B, it's a flat 9, not a major 9. Okay, so that pattern won't work. And then it starts to sound a bit weird. So it's not really true to say this works over all minor chords, but if you're playing something ever and it sounds a bit funny, use your ear and trust your ear to be the ultimate guide. Here's another non-diatonic chord progression. Diatonic are chords from a key, and this is just a major 7th chord moved into kind of random places. And it just serves as a good example of now using major shapes. They're all the same chord quality, major 7ths, all the way here. So we can use the same shapes. And I don't know if you noticed, but at the beginning, I stuck to that one I like again. Root, 5, 9, but now it's not minor, it's major, so I could go 2 frets higher than that, and then I have a pattern that I can use. Just quickly, that red blob that you see can and should be moved to any root, and that's all you do. You just find the note we need, so A major 7, we need to find an A, and you can play the pattern off that, it'll work. Then we have a C, so you just need to find a C, the pattern will work, then B, and then D. Great note learning exercise. If you can't find the notes as quickly as I did just then you need to work on being able to do that. That's just a good thing to practice. Here's another shape you can use, very similar to the root 5 flat 7 octave, but just move the flat 7 up a fret and you have a major 7th shape. C, down 1 fret to B, D. This is all about creativity and experimentation. You can use the same shape, you can mix and match any shape you like. It's completely up to you. Really, you want to rely on your musicality and your ear. I said this on the 2 lessons before, which is to learn the patterns and then unlearn them, and then just go with your instinct. Yes, that does take a bit of time, but hopefully this will give you something interesting to play around with. I did this as well. I like that shape. If I were to play this again in a session, I would minimize what am I playing. Your roots. Root 5 octaves, really simple. Might add that in there. There's just never a wrong or right. That's the D. This is the end of the 4 bar, or the end of the phrase, so I might do something a bit fancier there. And that's a little pentatonic pattern that we looked at. That would be the root note on the A string. This would be the root note on the E string. Got these notes in there. And this would be the pattern on the A string, sort of going in this direction. You know, so you learn all these shapes and you can do different things. You can play in different ways depending on which part of the fretboard you're on. If I were to play on the 5th fret of the A string, slides come into play for me if I'm playing a few notes on the same string. I always come back to the same players I love: Pino Palladino, Tony Levin, Leland Sklar, Gaelan Dorsey, players like this. To me, they've got impeccable tone, and they don't play an awful lot, but the tone carries it, the weight of the notes. And then every now and again, there's this melodic thing that comes in. This is one of the first backing tracks I created years ago. You might recognize it if you've been following me a while, but this one's in F minor. And it's more of a realistic kind of chord progression. So if I go through the chord progression, and I'll have to remind myself of it, we've got F minor. And I might just do that, root note. Even though I can play, you know, root 5, flat 7 octave, or something like that, the pattern that we've seen before. It's too many notes to fit it all in, so just, again, simplify it. Then we have an A flat major. A flat major 7 would work over that. And again, just root notes would also work. D flat major 7. All of these patterns will work. The pentatonic one I showed you before. But I wouldn't do that, I would go simple. What I would say is connecting from one note to another in a melodic way is sometimes a nice way to go. So something like this. I mean, something simple as that. F minor to A flat major, I just ran up the scale. So we're in the key of F natural minor, right? You need to know all these scales, and I don't always have time to go into it in every single lesson I do. I do have a music theory course which teaches all of these shapes in massive detail with loads of examples. So if you want to go a bit deeper into it, you can check that out. But I'm just going up the scale. And something like this. So I'm on A flat now. Root 5. Super simple. That's just a nice way to get to the D flat. Or you can chromatically run to it. Then C minor. Notes from the scale again to make it nice and melodic and link up. Does that section again. Notice how it's mostly roots. Then we have this second section, B flat minor. And I was branching out a bit into more notes. So there's that pattern. Whenever you see a minor chord, this works. Root 5, flat 7 octave. They're all minor here. C minor, use the same shape. And then F minor, same shape. Now we have an opportunity here to do a fill. Pentatonic. That's your friend here. And again, that lesson with the PDF, with all the shapes, I've got that for you. So don't freak out if I'm going a bit too fast here. I know these shapes. If you don't, just learn them. And I'm doing things like slides, hammer-ons, pull-offs. All of those things will turn a scale into music. That section again, I'll do B flat here now. You could practice that section on its own. B flat minor, C minor, F minor. F minor is twice. That was a different pattern. Root 5, 9. It will work over the B flat and the F minor chords, but not the C. I know it seems like there's 100 patterns, but there really aren't. And some of them cross over from the major to the minor. For example, if I'm on that C, a root 5 and octave, they're really great notes to use. And they occur both in the major and the minor versions. And if you want to know a minor 7, it's sort of 2 away from the octave. And you just learn that, right? 2 away. Whereas the major 7 is 1 fret away. I'd have to go back to demonstrate that. So F minor, A flat. See, that's the A flat major 7. But those are very related patterns, apart from the 7th in each was a bit different. And then you've got things like the 9th. It's just 2 frets higher than the octave, and that can be used over any major chord, most minor chords. Not this one. Okay, so I tend to avoid it on that one. Start very simple, and then you keep practicing, and above all, I think you listen to bass players and listen to music and figure out bass lines. I promise you, you will start to hear all of these patterns that I've been teaching you. You'll hear them all the time, all the same scales, all the same shapes, everything. That will really help your ear, and it will allow you to work out bass lines with ease, and then you can improve your bass playing massively by doing that. That's one of the best things I think you can do. Listen to all kinds of different styles, figure it out, and learn from all of that. Okay, that's quite a long lesson. I think I'm going to stop there. But what I'll do is I'll put a link below to all of the resources plus the other lessons, and I'll put one of them right here if you want to watch after this one. Any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next lesson.